Everyone, welcome back. And today I'm here to solve a new problem. So the problem today which we are going to be solving is finding the sum of n natural numbers. Okay, so now as uh, before we make our hands dirty and go into coding, first here we'll make a scratch pad, or we'll do a general procedure before we do. So it's a general way of speaking that whenever we are writing a program or or solving a problem, before we jump directly into our IDE and start tapping the code, the first thing is brainstorming. In this so in brainstorming, you basically create a map or a pseudocode of how will you actually approach your solution, and how will you solve it. And basically, in this how it starts is, first, what do we want our program to do, and then what is the most viable or most easiest first solution available to do it, and how can we get the correct answer. So let's start it. Yep. So the problem, first we define a problem. It is finding the sum of n natural numbers. So basically, what are n natural numbers first? N natural numbers are a range of numbers which include from 1 to infinity. They don't include 0. They are all, and plus they are all positive integers. They are all positive integers, and these are the numbers which only include from 1 to infinity, non-zero positive integers. So in this problem, we, as in user, we will put an input which will be a number that could be, let's say, 5, and we expect our program to find the sum of first 5 natural numbers that we have entered. So basically, the input which we enter, it should calculate that many amount of that many it should calculate the sum of that many numbers, that many n natural numbers. So for example, 5. So our program should be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So that will be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 10, and 5, 15. That will be 15. And now how will we actually approach this solution? As we can see here, we need to repeat a task. Okay, so for repeating tasks, generally in programming, we use the concept of loops. And in Java, particularly, which I'm using Java here. If you go in different languages, in Python there are while and for loop, and in C there are again while, for, and do while. In different languages there are different types of loops, but for now in Java we're going to talk about there are 3 loops, which is for loop, while loop, and the do while loop. So to get the most easiest and a viable solution, we would be using a for loop here. For loop in such a way that we can iterate the number that many times, which is proportional to our n, that we have inputted. So basically, we need our for loop to conduct addition 5 times, as we've entered 5, or n times whatever number we input. And for that we will be also using a live variable. There's going to be another variable called the live variable, which will be our starter, which is also called a starter variable. Basically from where our addition will start. We'll keep that 0 as we want to save our answer in that last save our answer of that total sum in that integer. So I guess that's the broad map of it. And now we can get into actual problem solving by doing this by coding and getting into the solution. Okay, so now let's get into IDE. So here I'll create my new file. I will name it sum and yep, it's already here. So I'll declare my main function, and yep. Okay, so before I'll get my we'll import our utilities library for scanner method, so that we can input a number or anything. So yep, import java.util, and yeah. So now here we start scanner sc new scanner isbm.in, and after this, now I'll just make it better. Yeah, here. So now first, here let's do that. Let's do the basic input ones. Suit enter a number. Please enter a number. I'll put here 0, because n natural numbers, they do not include 0. And after this, now I'll name my variable n and sc.next int. Yeah, so here we are done with our basics. So now let's include our live variable from our I'll name it starter instead, because from there we're going to start our addition. That number is going to actually start addition, so that's going to be 0. And yeah, here we can start now. So let's use the for loop. So for, it's going to start from I int I is equal to 1. Our initializer will be 1 this time. We don't want 0 because we already have put that as a starter variable. So so that will already be included. So we can start with 1 here. So int 1, and I, our stopping condition will be less than or equal to our number that we have input, or number that inputted, or that what we want. So that will be n, and increment by 1. So starter I, and here, so starter plus I, and here we can print our starter variable. So I guess, yes, that should work. So if we dry run this loop, for example, again, if I enter 5, my n is 5, and my starter is 0 as it is, and in the first iteration, and so it's so it's from 1 to 5 now. My first iteration, starter plus I, so it's going to be 0 plus 1, then then a new value will be 1, and then again 0, again it'll be 1 plus, then it'll be 2, it'll be 3, 4, and so on. I'll try run this again. First, let's run it here. So here we can see enter our number. So let's take it 5, and yes, 15. We have got our answer. So this code works. So let me just dry run it again. So let me just dry run this here on notes. So here I am. I'll just create a new notebook. Yeah. So here first, our n, which we have inputted the number, that is 5, and our starter variable, starter for now, is 0 exactly. So now we'll start the loop. So first loop, so starter is equal to start. So the formula to carry out this, before we get in the loop, we'll get the formula. The formula starter plus I, and here in first scenario, I value is equal to 1. This is the first iteration. Let me just name it first iteration, or first loop. So now as we run our first loop, I is 1, starter is 0, and n is constant 5. That's going to remain constant, so we don't have to change it again and again. So now So now when we do our formula, that's going to be starter is equal to starter, that is 0 plus 1, that is equal to 1. So now our new starter is equal to 1. So that's for first iteration. Now let's go with the second iteration. Okay, now second iteration, I is 2, starter is now updated to 1 because of previous iteration, and after this now starter is 1, and again n is constant, so I'm going to touch that, and let's do that. Starter, that's going to be 1 plus 2, which is 3. So we're getting it. So we got 3 here. So now our new starter is 3. And third iteration. I is 3 and starter is also 3 this time because of previous variable, and starter and now we go again as starter. Our starter will be 3 plus 3, that is 6, and new starter is equal to 6. Now fourth iteration, I is 4, starter is 6, and starter will be 6 plus 4, that's going to be 10, and new starter is 10 now. And on fifth iteration, I is 5. This is going to be a last one because as our stopping condition was I is lesser than or equal to n, which is 5. So we've already reached 5. So this will be a last iteration, a last loop, and then our program should be over and we should get our answer. So starter will be 10 and 6 plus, and that's going to be 10 plus 5, that is 15, and we've got our answer. But we know this, but the computer doesn't actually know this. So computer is going to move to the next iteration, and as computer only works on logic, it's going to go to the next iteration. It's going to put I is equal to 6, but as it sees I is equal to 6, which is not in the condition, as the condition was I should be less than or equal to 5. So here it will stop the loop and then stop the loop and then print the answer, which is 15, and here we will get our answer 15, which we got it. Okay, so now this is our basic program what we're done with, and I guess it looks pretty good and pretty perfect, but it's not actually perfect. There are still some loopholes or loose pieces in it which has to be fixed. For example, we can take from the beginning in our input input part. So for example here, let's say I've written on, and as on the input label I've written here, I've mentioned here explicitly to type a non-zero positive integer, but still sometimes user might enter 0, and the program it takes it in and processes it and gives a 0, which is logically the correct answer, but we don't want that. We don't want 0. And another problem also, if for example instead of 0 I enter, let's say, a negative integer -5, it again takes it and gives 0, which is wrong, and it should not be taking that. So there are some validations or cross checks which we have to do. So there are so to handle this, there are 2 ways which I have thought of. There are 2 ways. Which first is using if conditions, if else statements, if else statements, or we can use a more uh, more systematic and a more systematic approach, which is a do while loop. So I haven't touched much on this, but I'll just explain vaguely what it actually does. So I'll just do it here. So it's do. The syntax is like this. Condition. So this is the condition. So basically, there are two keywords here used, do and the while. So as we know, while is already the loop which is used. As that's where the name comes from, do while loop. So in this loop, basically in the do keyword, or in the do under the do bracket, we add a task or a series of tasks which it will carry out at least once, which will be carried out at least once and then later it will be checked by the while loop, and if the condition is true, it will be carried out the task will be done and it will be over. And it will be checked by the while condition, while loop, where we'll set the condition, and if that condition is true, it'll keep on repeating that task. As the name suggests, loop, the main nature of loop is to conduct the task again and again. So that's how it works. So in this scenario, we can add a do while loop where if the user enters 0 or any negative integer, it will not have the program will throw an error, or it will ask the user for the number or the input again and again until the user enters the correct desired input that the program wants. So let's implement this here. Now, to implement it here, first I will comment this out and I'll do a do while loop. So so here first I'll make it do a series of tasks. So I'll put scanner sc my input that will be scanner dot in. Here we got, and our message I'll just copy the message from there. I'll just copy the input prompt from here. Here we're going, yes, we got this, and now int n, and now our variable sc dot next int. So here it is, yeah, and our condition n is equal to 0. So in this task, if we dry run this, if we dry run this or trace the code, here first the do condition will be initialized. In this do condition, it will ask the user the input, and then if the input, let's say, enters 0 and it checks the condition, n is equal to 0, so again it will go back inside the loop and it will ask the user the input, and again if the user enters 0, again it will go back and ask the user the input. So it will keep on doing that again and again unless the user doesn't enter the correct number. So here we'll start our program, and yeah, okay, there's a problem. Variable and local class. Oh, okay, wait, there's a small problem here. Int n. Yes, this should work now. The problem should be good. The problem should be here. Okay, so basically the problem here was, if I'll just explain it. It's a very common mistake, and that can happen. So the thing here I did was I forgot to enter my n variable, I forgot to declare it as a global variable. So in programming language, there are two main types of variable, global and local variable. So global variable are the variables which can be used in your entire program, which can be used in your entire program. Once you declare it, they can be used anywhere, for example, in anywhere, either in loop or in any condition. But whereas local variables are variables which are declared only for that some specific instance. For example, I declared here only in n. So on while, which is outside the do keyword or do bracket, that won't recognize n as my variable, because for its because according to the while keyword, n doesn't exist. So you can see here there's same error here also. So for that, I will have to declare it outside the loop. Well, on global, so this is the small problem. I'll explain global and local variables in my next video. So I'll just do this. It's declared outside, and that's already declared int n, so I don't have to again initialize my data type. I can just write it and I can just declare the variable as it is. So it's fixed now, and now if I put it, yes, now I'll run my program. It should work. Yes. Yeah, it should work. So let's say 0. Yes, you can see here it's asking again and again. Here, as you can see, it's asking. It's not letting me go to the next part of the program. So if I write 5, boom, I get my answer. Or let's say if I write 4, I'll get a 10, or even a bigger number. Let's take about 100. I got it, 50/50. So it works. 5,550. And now, as I mentioned, so we have solved this problem 0. But now if, for example, I enter a negative integer, -6, it's again doing. So there's a problem here too. So to do that, I can use a logical OR operator that is done using two vertical stands. Here it is. So OR n is less than 0. So now I've added these two conditions. So now it should work. So if I add 0, it'll ask me again. If I put -7, it'll ask me. And if I put now 5, it works. Or if I put 22, it works. 253. So I guess, yes, that's it. There are no other issues. And I guess this is the most robust code, and this is the most viable solution available for this problem. Okay, so this is the solution of solving of the problems of this problem, finding sum of n natural numbers. So in this, so let's recap this. Here we learned the use of live variable, and then also live variable like how it is used, how we can store our answer, and then how we can print it later. And lastly, the use of do while loop, which can be used for doing tasks repetitively for a specific condition in a more systematic and mannered approach. So here it is. So I hope you liked the video, and if you liked it, please throw a thumbs up. And if you want to stay up to date and get more and get to know more videos and get notified, so please hit the subscribe button, and please share the videos if you found it really useful. Thank you.